Hi, everyone. Frank Spangler here for ADRA Canada, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this training series on how to get better photos and videos with your smartphone. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the settings options of your smartphone. I know the trouble we're going to run into is that everybody's smartphone might be just a little bit different, and the menu options that are available are going to be different. Depending on whether you have an Android or an iPhone or what brand you have, the menus might not be anywhere near like what I'm going to show you on my phone, but I think the principles will be the same, and that's the most important thing. Basically, what we want you to do is go to the camera settings on your menus and select the highest possible quality for taking photographs and the highest possible quality that your phone will allow for shooting video. And then, in addition to that, we'll show you just a few other things that might help your video be more compatible with the video that we film here at ADRA Canada. All right, so let's get started. Now, how do you get to your menu options? You probably know that because you've probably been adjusting menu options for other things on your smartphone. So just go to your menu options on the iPhone. It's the settings wheel. And then just scroll down until you see something that says camera. And it should be something similar on your phone. And you'll see that as you scroll up here, you have a whole lot of options that you can adjust to change the specific settings that your phone will take in the terms of video and still photos. I think the first thing I'd like to look at is formats. So if you have an iPhone and you see formats there, let's click on that. Now the first option here says camera capture. This has to do with how your video will be saved. In what format will it be saved, or what codec will it be saved? And your two options are high efficiency and most compatible. I have mine set to high efficiency because that allows me to save a whole lot more 4K video on my phone. I have 512 gigabytes, but your phone may only be 120 gigabytes. And so if you're filming 4K video for us, your hard drive might fill up quite fast. So having your camera set to high efficiency, you'll be able to save a lot more video in that same amount before you have to offload the media to a hard drive. Now, an additional benefit of filming in high efficiency, if you have an iPhone, is that the file sizes, because they're smaller, are going to be a lot easier to send to us over the internet. 4K files, video files, can be very heavy, we say, or very large files, and can take a long time to send over the internet, especially if your internet speeds aren't the fastest. And so by filming in high efficiency, you'll be able to send us those beautiful 4K videos much more efficiently. The downside to filming in high efficiency on an iPhone is that while you'll be able to see the photos that you've shot, the video that you've shot on your phone, because it's an Apple device and they have the hardware and software needed to be able to show these, once you download them to your hard drive at your office and try and play those videos on your PC, they might not play at all because the PC just doesn't have maybe the license to play this codec. For whatever reason, the PCs will just have a difficult time playing these high efficiency files that you record on your iPhone. So you have to kind of weigh between the two options. If you're going to be editing this at your office, you might want to choose most compatible, but just know that it's going to fill up your phone faster and it's going to be harder to send us the video files. I might just say, though, that if you are wanting to get the best of both worlds, you could choose high efficiency here. And if you do need to edit at your office and you don't have a Mac computer, then you could use some software to convert these files over to regular MP4 files, and then you'll be able to edit them on your office computers or your laptops. All right, the next one down, photo mode. Just tap on that. It may be on your Android phone. This is going to be worded differently, but the idea is how can I choose the best settings to take photos or to take the best photos? And on the iPhone, I have a choice between 12 megapixels and 24 megapixels. And of course, I want to choose the highest format to take my shots. And so I've got it set to 24. Your next option on the iPhone is Pro RAW and resolution control. I have that turned on, and that gives me some options when I do that. And now, because I have that turned on, I can tap on Pro Default to choose what I'm going to take my photos at by default. And I've got it set to Pro RAW Max, up to 48 megapixels. And this gives me two things. It gives me a higher format with more megapixels, but it also has me taking the photographs in what's called the RAW format. And when you take in the RAW format, it opens up a world of possibilities when it comes to editing the photo. And so I recommend having this turned on. Now, I should mention, just because you have it turned on here in the settings does not mean that every photo that you take is going to be in the RAW. At least on the iPhone, when you have it set here, it still by default is not going to use that setting. When you really want to shoot in RAW, you have to tap a little thing in the side menu before you hit the button to take a photo. And so it's an additional step that you have to do to actually take a photo in the RAW format on the iPhone. Now, it might be different on your Android phone, but somewhere, if it's a relatively new Android phone, you should have the option of selecting whether or not you can take your photos in the RAW format. And if possible, turn it on. And when you're taking those really great photographs for your to go with your reports and your stories, it'd be great if you could have that turned on. It'll give us a lot more flexibility when editing the photos. Let's keep scrolling down. Okay, on the iPhone, notice whether or not you have the option of selecting to film video in the ProRes format. And if you do, turn that on here. And you'll notice that when you do, you have new options showing up, ProRes encoding. And the three options are HDR, SDR, and log. I have mine set to log. And that again gives me the greatest flexibility of doing color grading and changing the exposure and getting the highest dynamic range out of the video that you send in when I'm editing the video. So for those really important shots, it's nice to have the option of being able to film in Apple ProRes. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you use it all the time because the file sizes are going to be very large and they are going to fill up your camera quite quickly. You might have to offload every day if you are shooting everything in ProRes. So it's the same kind of principle. Even though we have the settings turned on in here, the camera, when you go to shoot video, is not going to film in ProRes unless you specify that you want that clip to be done in ProRes. So what I do, I have it turned on here, but I shoot most of the video in the high efficiency codec, and that way I can film for probably a good month before I have to offload my camera because the file sizes are so small. But at least I know that if I see something really special and I want to get the best possible quality out of the video, that I can tap a little button, menu option, just before I hit record. And so it's nice to have that option. Okay, that's everything under format. Let's tap and go back to the main setting options. And here again, right at the top on the iPhone menu, is a place where we can select the resolution of the video. All right, we see here on the iPhone, at least on my iPhone, I'm working with an iPhone 15 Pro Max. So if you have an iPhone 13 or iPhone 14, maybe even just a 15 that doesn't have the Pro version or the Pro Max version, I'm not sure that you'll have the option of all of these settings, but the idea is we want to pick the best out of the settings that you have for your device. So let's take a look at what I have. I can have my camera record video anywhere between 720 progressive, that's kind of a low-end HD format, all the way through 4K at 60 frames per second. I've selected 4K at 24 frames per second. You might be wondering, well, why 24? If you're wanting the best, why not set it to 4K at 60 frames per second? And the answer to that question might lead us down a road that's maybe more technical than what is required for this video. Just know that I've chosen 24 here on my phone because when I'm out in the field filming, I film everything at 24 frames per second unless I know that that shot is going to look good if I set it, if I want to change it later to slow motion. If I see something that looks like, oh, that'll be good in slow motion, then I'll change it to 60 frames per second. On the phone, you can actually go to 120 frames per second. Most phones will let you do that. Or it'll just give you an option before you hit record to choose slow motion when you're filming, and that kind of overrides whatever setting you have here. But the reason I have mine set at 24 frames per second is because that's what I film everything at when I'm filming out in the field, whether it's with my phone or my high-end video camera, 24 frames per second. And the reason we're filming at 24 frames per second is because the look that gives is more like a theater. The movies that you see in the theater are all filmed at this film rate. And so if your eye has gotten used to that type of look, then the videos that you shoot at 24 frames per second are going to be look more professional or more soothing or pleasing when you see the 24 frames per second. It has to do with motion especially. If your shots have a lot of motion in it, the 24 frames per second is going to give you more blur in the motion and look more natural like our eyes see it. And if you're shooting at 60 frames per second, and it's just going to be a little bit more jittery when you watch it. Now, you might be asking, what if I don't have the option of filming in 4K? What do I do? Well, again, the principle is the same. We want you to go through your camera settings and select the highest possible resolution that your smartphone will do. It could be that as you look at your menu settings, you see an option of 2K. And if so, select that. It might not have 4K, but if you have 2K, select that. 2K is going to be better than just simple HD. It's certainly going to be better than HD at 720p. So take a look. They should be in the order of the highest quality, and select the best one. But if possible, select the highest one at 24 frames per second. Now, you might be asking, I don't see a 24 frames per second. I've got 25, but I don't have 24 frames per second. And that could be because your phone comes pre-selected to the PAL TV standard. PAL is the TV standard for most countries of the world, whereas in Canada, the United States, and Japan, and a few other countries are on a different TV standard called NTSC. You should have an option. Here I see on my phone, I can switch to PAL. If I turn that on, then I will have the option of choosing 25. So if you have an option to show NTSC formats or switch your phone to NTSC, by turning that on, you should have the 24 frames per second option show up. Now, if you can't, don't worry. Go ahead and get the shots anyway. We'll work with it. Our editing software can handle these kinds of things. They make slight adjustments in the background. So let's see. Enhanced stabilization, I have that on if you have that option. What about white balance? Does your camera have an option here in your settings to lock the white balance? If so, turn that on, and that will help me when I do the edit. If you don't have this turned on, your camera might be adjusting the white balance as you go from shot to shot, or even in the middle of your shooting, it can change the white balance, and that makes the video harder to edit. So it's nice to have that turned on. Let's go back to the main settings. Now, on the iPhone, we have an option to preserve settings. Remember me talking about the little options that you can tap on or off, little adjustments that you can make on your screen just before you take your shot. Well, the question they're asking you right now is, do you want the camera to remember the changes that you make the next time you want to take a shot? Do you want it to remember what you just adjusted to, or start from scratch again? Let me give you an example. Let's say it's getting close to the evening setting and the shots that you're taking, this doesn't seem like it's getting the correct exposure. The question is, do you want the camera to remember that adjustment that you made so that the next time you go to take a shot in that dusk setting, you have to make that adjustment again? If you know you're going to take 20, 30 shots, do you really want to be making that adjustment every time you pick up the camera? Or do you want the camera to remember the adjustment that you made for that setting? I kind of like to have the camera remember that, because often I'll take 20, 30 shots in any given setting and the lighting is probably going to stay fairly consistent. So why make adjustments every time you go to make a shot? So I like to have that turned on. But then there are some things like Apple ProRes, I have that turned off. The live photo, I have turned off. And so you can go through these and decide what you want the camera to remember. If I had the Apple ProRes turned on here, once I tapped on it to take one in the ProRes, then it's going to remember that and take everything else in the Apple ProRes. My hard drive is going to fill up very quickly. And so I have that turned off. I have to tap it every time I want something shot in ProRes. So keep that in mind as to what you want your camera to preserve the settings. Okay, let's scroll down. Grid. We talked about this in our introductory lesson. What this does is it turns on the hopscotch lines when you're taking a photo. You see these lines, vertical and horizontal lines on your screen if you have your grid turned on. And that helps new photographers learn how to adjust their camera so that they're composing their shot in a way that is pleasing to the eye. And we'll talk more about that in another lesson where we deal with composition. But here you can turn that grid on or off. Usually the cameras come with it turned on by default, so you've probably already noticed that your grid is on. But if it's not on, if you don't see those lines and you're new to photography, I'd recommend turning those on. That'll help you get the best composition when you're first learning photography. All right, the level. I don't know if your phone has this, but if so, it can also help you. If you have that turned on, when you're just setting up a shot, there's this little line that comes on your screen to let you know whether your camera is level or not. It'll be a straight line that lines up. And so that can be very helpful as you're getting your shot to keep your photographs level. Mirror the front camera. I think that has something to do with whether or not, if you're taking a selfie, whether the writing on your shirt is going to look backwards or not. View outside frame. I like to have that turned on. Many of the rest of these, let's see, photographic styles. If your camera has this option of changing the photographic styles between warm and cool and that type of thing, I would say if you have an option that's neutral, or in this case standard, let's just keep the shots for us as standard. We'll apply any warmth or coolness to the shot when we're editing the photograph. Having it neutral is probably the best for us. All right, well, I believe that does it for our video today on the settings of your camera. I hope you were able to follow along and pick up a few tips. If you have any questions about anything that we've discussed in this lesson, be sure and just put your question in the comments below. I'll keep an eye on that and answer your questions. The basic principle, again, is that we want you to change the settings on your camera to the highest possible video and highest possible photo quality before you go out and film and photograph the projects for ADRA. And of course, when you're at home and you're filming your personal things, you may want to change the settings to a lower setting so that you're not filling up the storage capacity of your device as quickly. But then when you go out to the project again and you're filming for the supporting office, please just take a moment and go to your settings and turn on those high quality settings. And remember, 24 frames per second is our preferred rate, and 4K if possible, and if not, the highest possible that yours will do. Well, that does it for today. We'll catch you next time here. So long for now.